So what happens whenever you take Die Hard and strip the hero of his vulnerability and most of his relatability? Oh god, no, nothing quite as atrocious as that. That's more like it. Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome to another episode of First Impressions. On today's episode, Dwayne Johnson must climb the world's tallest building in order to save his family in Skyscraper. The plot of the movie is that former FBI agent Will Sawyer, played by Dwayne Johnson, assesses security for skyscrapers after a failed mission left him an amputee, who now walks with a prosthetic leg. While in Hong Kong, he is tasked with inspecting the newly opened building The Pearl when a fire breaks out, trapping his wife Sarah, played by Nevaeh Campbell, and their 2 children inside, and he's framed for the incident by a gang of criminals. Now a wanted man and on the run, he must defeat those responsible, clear his name, and most importantly, rescue his family. As I hinted at in the intro to this video, this movie is basically an extended homage to Die Hard, and it even owes more than a bit of a debt to something like The Towering Inferno as well. Sadly, this movie isn't quite up to the same quality as either of those 2 films. It's very generic, the setup is very familiar, the characters are all very run-of-the-mill, seen them before. There's nothing to really set it apart from other films in the Die Hard on an X subgenre. At least with some of the better Die Hard clones, there's usually something that helps it stand out a little bit. Whether it be a unique setting, a great villain, extremely memorable and entertaining action, or a mixture of all of the above. And even the film's action, which is admittedly its biggest strength, a lot of it just feels similar to other better action movies. The only thing about the film that is kind of original is that Johnson is playing an amputee, which is admittedly a pretty interesting idea, and there are a few moments where they do get some tension out of that, but that's about it. The fact that his character is an amputee doesn't really factor into the movie nearly as much as it probably should, and there's little else that defines Johnson's character outside of just being an amputee. I know that The Rock does kind of get a lot of criticism for playing basically the same character over and over again in his movies, but it has never felt more apparent than it has here. Don't get me wrong, The Rock is still as likeable as ever, and it doesn't seem like he's phoning it in or anything. It still feels like he's quite committed to the role, but his charisma is largely just wasted throughout the film. And what's worse is that the film is very predictable. You can see many of the plot points coming from a mile away. Partially because I've seen them in other action movies, but also because the movie sets them up in the most heavy-handed and most risible way possible. For example, there's a character who's meant to be Johnson's best friend. He's a former colleague of his, but big shock, turns out he's actually in league with the bad guys and he's trying to set Johnson up. And the movie is just constantly standing in the shadow of other better action movies. I've already mentioned that this movie feels like an inferior version of Die Hard and The Towering Inferno, but it also feels like an inferior version of other action movies in general. The entire crane climbing sequence, as entertaining as it was, just made me think of Tom Cruise climbing the Burj Khalifa in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. And I just say to myself, oh yeah, Mission Impossible Fallout's right around the corner, I can't wait to talk about that movie. Oh wait, I have to talk about Skyscraper first. And then there's also a big set piece inside a hall of mirrors that just made me think of Enter the Dragon or John Wick Chapter 2, and I just say to myself, well, why can't I just be watching those 2 movies instead? But I think the main reason why this movie really pales in comparison to Die Hard is the lack of vulnerability in the main character. They do try to convey vulnerability, especially during the scenes in which he's climbing alongside the building or in the crane climbing scene. And it does work to a certain extent there. In fact, there are a few moments that did leave me on the edge of my seat, I'll admit that. But they're not anywhere near as effective as watching McClane having to walk around on glass-sliced feet, or having to jump off a roof with nothing but a hose pipe to save him. And as much as I do like The Rock as an actor, he's more Arnold Schwarzenegger than Bruce Willis. And I just find it very hard to buy him as an everyman in the same way that I would buy Willis as an everyman. Don't get me wrong, despite my issues with it, it's not what I would call a terrible movie. It's perfectly watchable, and I usually don't mind dumb, fun action movies. In fact, I was hoping I could kind of enjoy this movie as a dumb, fun action movie, but most of the time I was just constantly being reminded of other better movies in the genre, and because it takes itself so seriously a lot of the time with very little in the way of humour, it's just not that much fun to watch. In fact, there's another movie starring The Rock that also came out this year that's a hell of a lot more fun than this. Rampage. Yeah, that movie's pretty silly and ridiculous, not exactly what I would call a good film per se, but it's much more fun, has much more self-awareness, and even has much more goofy charm and personality than this soulless derivative actioner. Overall, Skyscraper is serviceable at best. It's got some decent action and a likeable performance from The Rock, but it's so generic outside of that. Everything about it has been done before and done better. The characters are stock, the villains are lame, the directing is passable but nothing outstanding, and as much as it tries to homage Die Hard, it just misses a lot of what made that movie so great in the first place. I'm gonna give Skyscraper a light 5 out of 10. I will say this about the movie, it's a watchable movie, and if you're just looking for a quick action fix, you might enjoy it just fine, but as for me, I could easily recommend 100 other action movies over it. In fact, go see any of the movies I mentioned in my review, you'll get a lot more out of them than you would here. So Skyscraper, have you seen it yet? If so, what'd you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What'd you like about it? What'd you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's a little bit shorter than usual, I just didn't really have a lot to say about this movie. But if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, a comment, maybe even subscribe to my channel while you're at, that'd be much appreciated. And if there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, do let me know, I'm always happy to hear feedback. And if you want to follow me on social media or support me on Patreon, links below down in the description. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.